Good afternoon. I'm Granny Fisher, and today we're going to talk about how to get started homesteading. A lot of people are concerned about the way the country's going and how the economy might play out this year and next year. And some people are concerned about violence in the cities because they might live in a city. And so a lot of people are looking at homesteading, so I'm going to give you a few tips based on my experience. Just recently I saw a quotation from Walt Disney, and he said, "The way to get started is to quit talking and start doing." And I think that's really good advice if you want to homestead. You start with what you've got. You start with the resources at hand and do what you can with what you've got. And then you just gradually add to that. Now, I'm going to give you kind of an off-the-cuff definition of a homesteader. If you look at words that start with home, like homeschooler, homesteader, or homemaker, that all of these words that start with home have to do with doing things for yourself, but without having someone else telling you to do them. So you don't have someone standing over you cracking the whip. You have to be a self-starter. You have to decide what you need to do and do it. And Walt Disney's advice is very accurate. You have to just quit talking and start doing. The first thing you have to do is prioritize. Decide what's really important. If someone set off an EMP today, and all the electrical stuff, all the electronics were gone, and some of the cars wouldn't drive. You couldn't pump gas at the gas pump, and your lights didn't come on. Maybe your city water eventually would run out because they would empty out their reserves and there would not be any way to pump new water. So just imagine what that would be like for you personally. What that would be like for your family. If that happened right now, what would you regret not doing? What would you miss the most? And those are the things you need to put at the top of your list. That's your priorities. The survivalists always use the rule of threes. You can survive for 3 minutes without air. You can survive for 3 hours without shelter if you're in severe conditions. You can survive for 3 days without water, and you can survive for 3 months without food. So given that everybody's got oxygen, we've all got air, the other 3 things tell you what's important. You need shelter, you need water, and you need food. And so I'm going to give you what I consider the top 7 priorities for someone who wants to homestead. Number 1, you need a place. You need a place to homestead. That would fall under the shelter category, but you need a place. It doesn't have to be fancy, but you need a place where you can do what you need to do. An apartment won't work. You can't homestead in an apartment. You might plant a few tomato plants or cucumber plants in a bucket on your patio or something like that. But that's not homesteading because you couldn't survive on that tomato plant. So an apartment won't work. And honestly, I don't think you can do it in the city, and mainly because of the security aspect. There's so much violence going on in the cities now, even more than there used to be. Used to be it was just gang violence or drug addicts, people shooting people and robbing them. Now you've got rioters trying to burn the cities down, and it's just not a safe place for you to be. It's not a safe place for you to raise your family. And so you need to get out of the city. You need to get out of the apartment. And wherever you go, whether you're buying a place or renting a place, leasing a place, it needs to be a place where you have the freedom to do what you need to do for yourself and your family. So you don't want to move someplace that has a homeowner's agreement. Some of those places won't even let you put up a radio antenna. You know, if you want to have a CB or a ham radio, you can't even put up an antenna. And some ham operators have become stealthy about putting antennas in their attic, things like that, because you can't do it under some of those conditions, under some of those homeowners agreements. You can't homestead very well in a place that has restrictions. You might buy some property and they have restrictions that you have to have a house of a certain size or whatever. You can't do it there. You need the freedom to do what you need to do. And it's best to avoid a place that has a lot of inspections, a lot of ordinances and zoning, that kind of stuff. So what you want is a place where you can do what you need to do. You don't want to be someplace where if you have a goat or a chicken in your yard, they come knocking on your door and say, you can't have that here. Be selective about the place you get, whether it's bought or rented. If it's rented, make sure you've got a landlord that's agreeable with what you want to do. You can do it on a rented place. You don't have to have a fancy shelter either. You can renovate an old farmhouse. You can buy some bare land and move a camper on it, or put up tents. There's some people here in our area that bought some land up on a mountain and put up some tents, and some of the neighbors were complaining. One neighbor was complaining on Facebook about the tents, and everybody in the comments said, why don't you just mind your own business? If they own the land, they can do what they want to there. There's no zoning here. And so that's the kind of place you want, some place where you can do what you want. You can have a camper. You could build a cabin. A lot of people get these little storage buildings and turn them into homes. Just accept the fact that you're probably going to live rough for a while. It's okay. It will get better. Okay, that's your shelter. You need a place. That's number one. Number two, you need a water source. And you need a reliable water source. If you have to start out with city water at first, that's okay. You try to get to the point where you're not reliant on the city water. You could use a spring. That would be my first preference if you have a good flowing spring. But most of the places with really good springs are already taken. But a spring would be good. You could dig it out so you have a good flow and cap the spring. Some people put little spring houses over the spring so that they can chill down their milk and that kind of thing. A spring is good. Well would be number two. A good well, you might want to get it tested to see if the water is good and has no contaminants in it. But a spring or a well. Third would be a creek or stream. And you could use a creek or a stream even if you have to purify the water. You could pour the water through a filter like a Brita water filter, or you could boil the water. You could make your own filter. There are YouTube videos you can look at or websites that show you how to make a filter using rocks and sand and charcoal, that kind of stuff. So there are ways to use creek water. And some people also use rain catchment systems. They run gutters along their shelter and run it off into a large tank. And so you could use that. So there are a lot of ways to get your water, but water is your number two priority after finding a place, get a water source, and then number three is storing food. So before you're able to raise animals or garden or anything, you need to put back some food so you have food available. And if nothing else, just go to your little cheapo grocery store, buy a bunch of canned goods, canned beans, canned beef stew, canned soup, canned vegetables, canned fruit. Don't forget some fruit. And be sure and get salt. I try and pick up some salt every time I go to the grocery store because salt is an essential mineral you have to have. And you can even use it to, if the power goes off, you could take meat out of your freezer and salt it down. So store some food as much as you can. If nothing else, when you go to buy groceries every week, get extra of everything. If you need 3 cans of beans, get 6 cans of beans. So you're gradually building up stores, and as you use something from your pantry or from your storage, you might just have a Tupperware tub under your bed or something. As you use something out of that and move it into the kitchen or into the refrigerator, write down on a list that you need 2 more of those. And gradually you'll increase what you have on hand. Okay, so first is a place, second is a water source, third is stored food, fourth is medications. If you require some kind of prescription medication, talk to your doctor about getting extra. During this COVID pandemic, a lot of states, a lot of doctors are willing to give longer prescriptions, 90-day prescriptions or longer, for essential prescriptions, essential medications, so that if it's not available at the pharmacy, you'll still have what you need to survive. Try to get off anything that helps keep you alive. If you're diabetic, lose some weight, see if you can get off the medication. But if you have to have medication, make sure you've got extra stored up and you're keeping it under proper conditions. If it needs to be refrigerated or kept in a cool, dark place, make sure it's taken care of, because you're going to need it if the power goes off, if the store's closed, if you can't get that essential item. You also need all kinds of first aid equipment, Band-Aids, antibiotic ointment, antibacterial ointment, alcohol if you can find any. I'd get some Benadryl, because if you have an allergic reaction to something, that's essential. Decongestant, because if you get the flu or the COVID, you're going to need something to help clear your lungs. Just start thinking in terms of, if someone gets sick, what will we need? If someone has a bad cut, what will we need? And start stocking up on your medications. You can get them cheap if you look around. If you have an online pharmacy associated with your health insurance, check that out. Go to the dollar store. It doesn't have to be a name brand. Stock up. Okay, number 5 would be a way to grow or raise food and other essential items. So even medicinal plants are good, herbal remedies. If you want to use bamboo to build with, grow some bamboo. Start growing the things that you know you're going to need. Learn to garden. Maybe make a small makeshift greenhouse so you can grow some things in the winter, because right now, this is September as I'm recording this, and you may not have time to grow a garden. But do what you can with what you've got. Make a little makeshift greenhouse. Grow some tomatoes through the winter. But learn to grow and raise food. And we'll talk more about that in future videos, some specifics about what you can do. Okay, number 6 is security. Your security starts with being careful who you talk to. Be careful who you take into your confidence. Don't go show everybody your pantry or your stockpile of whatever. Don't tell them everything you're doing unless you really trust the people. You probably will want a firearm, because we've had a goat get attacked by a pit bull. We had to put the pit bull down because he wouldn't let go of her. He was going to kill her, and he had already killed 2 of our chickens. So you have to have something to protect your place, protect your family, protect your food stores and your other essential items, protect your animals. A dog is very important for security. Make sure you've got a dog, because a dog may not see as well as we do, but he can hear, he can smell, and he'll warn you if something's afoot. So make sure your security is taken care of. Seventh and last is community. You need other people. You need people to work with you. You need people to be your companion, and they keep you balanced. Family is very important, but if you don't have family, pull in your friends that feel like family. Begin to establish relationships based on common needs for preparing. Talk things over. Make sure you're on the same page. And you also need to get to know your neighbors, especially if you move to a new location because you're trying to homestead. You need to get to know your neighbors. But I don't know about other places, but in the South, people don't like a kiss up. So don't try kissing up to your neighbors. Just be there when they need somebody. If somebody's out bang, 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 bang in their backyard, go check and make sure they're okay. Make sure, if they're shooting at a predator, ask them if they need any help. They might have a rabid dog or something they're trying to take out. But just be there. If somebody breaks down in front of your house, ask them, do you need some help? If you see somebody walking by the side of the road and they don't look like a lowlife, pull over and say, hey, do you need some help? I've gone walking for exercise before and had people pull over and ask if I needed help, and I appreciated that. But anyway, that's my top 7 things you need to work on if you're going to homestead. This is your essential basics. There are a lot of other things, but these are your basics. Well, that's all we're going to talk about today. And if you like these videos on preparing for the next Great Depression, be sure to click the subscribe button, and when the little bell pops up, click that and click all so that you'll be notified whenever my new video goes up. But I'm trying to put them up on Monday afternoon. So every Monday I should have something up. And if you know of someone who would benefit from these videos, go ahead and share it with them too. Well, this is Granny Fisher, and I'll see you next time.